Happy New Year, 2021. We are back in the saddle. We have episode 67 on deck on your LOTD podcast. We have a big one in store today, Mr. Flick.
That's right. It's the long, I guess not promised. I don't think we ever mentioned it, but something that we've wanted to do for a long time, and we're taking the opportunity to do it. And that is a David Bowie fantasy draft, where we will be joined by our good friend and David Bowie super fan, Richard Shirk.
He's a super friend. He has among his superpowers are catalog depth. For David Bowie, it's excellent having him aboard. I think we're all fans. We're going deep today. We're going to go into the realms of the David Bowie catalog that not everybody's willing to go to, and I think we're going to bring the heat. In fact, I promise we're going to bring the heat.
And that's coming up, episode 67 of the Left of the Dial podcast, the LOTD pod. And this is The Time Warp by Richard Shirk, who will be joined by in a moment.
We're back. Happy 2021. 2020 is in the rearview mirror. Nothing but wide open spaces ahead of us. A great year ahead. We're going to will a great year into being with positivity. And I think we're starting off 2021 right, Mr. Flick. I think we're doing everything right here. We've got I don't know. It's extravaganza is an overused word, but I don't think it's inappropriate here. I think we're really starting with a David Bowie extravaganza. Do you think I'm overstating the case?
Yeah, it's going to be an extravaganza. We've been kind of behind the scenes plotting a David Bowie fantasy draft for a while, and now we're finally doing that. You know, with both the birth date and death date of David Bowie coming up in the next few days. We have invited our friend Richard Shirk to join, he's a David Bowie super fan, and we are going to have us a David Bowie fantasy draft once and for all.
Very exciting. Welcome, Richard. I'm glad to have a subject matter expert aboard today for our draft.
Wow, I am flattered by that designation, and we'll definitely try and do the man justice.
Before you get into the rules, there is I do pattern recognition for a living. So we've done an Iggy Pop draft. We're doing the David Bowie draft. You know what that means? The next one has to be, right? Lou.
Of course, Lou Reed.
Yeah, Lou Reed. I'll happily do that.
2021 is going to be great because we're going to get the Bowie and Lou Reed draft in this year. It's very, very exciting. But this is involved. We're going deep on this one. Why don't you give a rundown of the rules?
Well, there are a couple of things I wanted to get to before going into the rules. Over this weekend, Gary Marsden, of course, who was Gary of Gary and the Pacemakers, passed away. Not COVID related. It was heart related. And Gary and the Pacemakers, of course, from Liverpool. Had their hits. I think their first 3 hits went number 1 in the UK, which I believe was the first. The thing that I have to admit that is the closest to my heart by a lot is the Gary and the Pacemakers version of "You'll Never Walk Alone," which is played prior to Liverpool kickoffs at Anfield. It's one of those things. No matter how many times you see the crowd at Anfield sing it before a Liverpool match, it still gets to you. Like, it just gets right to your soul. It might be just because of my love for Liverpool, but it I don't know. It is one of those things that is very near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, I was an oldies disc jockey for a while, and I would say by the time we changed format from oldies to classic rock, I was turning the monitor volume down for about 95% of the songs that would come on. But I always left on, usually at high volume, even though it's not like a banger by any means. But Don't Let the Sun Catch You Crying and Ferry Cross the Mersey are among the most like beautiful sounding records back in the days when everything was analog and tubes, and if it sounded like strings, it's because it was strings. Just the most impeccable, beautiful production. His voice is about as sweet as anything I've heard come out of the UK. Just the songcraft, their joy in playing the music. Not a lot of oldies acts just sound as great today as they did probably when the records came out. And I've always thought that their big hits were just among the best sounding, just in just the most warm, inviting, wonderful songs. And I those are, when you play oldies for a living, like I say, they all kind of go smooth after a while, to quote Freddie Mercury. But theirs never did. It was really, really tip top all the way, just quality up and down.
That is a powerful eulogy, Rudy, and I'm yeah, wow. Let's dig into that in another. Let's do let's do the '60s overlooked
Yeah,
pop songs.
yeah. Let's do an oldie show someday.
The Nuggets Part 2 kind of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm into it.
Or maybe an all Liverpool show.
Ooh,
Yeah, wow. I we talked about Echo, and goes so much deeper.
I'm into it.
Well, yeah, there is a little known act called the Beatles that.
Perhaps you've heard of them.
Yeah. No offense to Echo, but it does go beyond them a bit. And the Laws too. You have the Laws. I know I'm forgetting it. Well, you have Cass because Cass shot off from the Laws.
Teardrop Explodes.
There you go.
Julian Cope, then, right? Of
course.
Yeah. Oh, I could talk some Julian Cope. He still makes good records too. He's not a was. He's an is, no doubt. He's a good author too. All right, I'm in for the Liverpool show. Just let me know.
Yeah.
2021 already shaping up. 2020 gets a bad rap and it's deserved, but I think the best way to put 2020 behind us is a sparkling 2021. I feel like we're getting there.
Excelsior.
Yes.
Well, it's very early, but yeah, I did also want to go back to late 2020, because we were doing our year-end shows and our Christmas shows, so it wasn't a time to really where we could really address what was going on. But I did want to quickly mention the passing of Charlie Pride as well. That was from COVID-19. Kind of going over the career of Charlie Pride, which, a pretty important career to music, because he was definitely a trailblazer in country music, being, the first, I guess at least first notable African-American country music artist. And, it certainly couldn't have been easy, but a little known fact that I was not aware of until kind of doing a little bit of reading on him. He started as a baseball player, and actually played in the Negro Leagues, but this was after the major leagues were already integrated. There still were the Negro Leagues as well. But his baseball career started in the Iowa State League, which I was totally unaware of.
Wow.
Yeah.
I had no idea. Yeah, Charlie Pride, one of the things is just he, I think his records would have been played if nobody had ever seen him, but think of how much harder, he and how much better he had to be heard, and to be heard over the din, and he was all of it. So, the accolades are certainly worth it. They're certainly earned. I don't want to act like I'm like a lifelong expert on his catalog, but if you don't like Kiss an Angel Good Morning, I don't think you like country. You're capable of music.
Well,
you know what I mean?
And really on RCA at that time, he was second, I think, only to Elvis as far as sales go.
I would have to look that up, but I can see it.
Yeah, so wanted to just mention that briefly.
I'm gonna have to defer to you to make the playlist. I'm not sure I know enough, but I think we'll work on a playlist and see if we can't get something up soon.
Yeah, we'll have to get a playlist, for Charlie Pride as well as Gary and the Pacemakers, very soon. We'll get that done.
All right. So, do you want to cover off on draft rules? Do you want to set the table here and let's get rolling?
Yeah. So here are the guidelines that we're working with, the parameters of our David Bowie fantasy draft. We will be each drafting 26 different David Bowie recordings. You are able to draft a live version of a song if you choose, and if you do, it will count as a pick from the studio album that the song originally appeared on, and then that will count toward your applicable minimums and maximums that we'll go over in just a moment. So the minimums are you have to represent at least 18 of the David Bowie studio albums, and the ones that we're using, like, they don't include the soundtrack albums. They're the 25 David Bowie studio albums and then the 2 Tin Machine albums. And you must include at least one 1960s studio album song, 3 from the 80s, 2 from the 90s, 2 from the 2000s, and 2 from the teens. And just in case you missed it, no minimum for the 70s, because if you can't hit a minimum from the 70s, then you're not doing a David Bowie draft, at least not in the proper way. Okay, so your draft must also include 3 rarities. These can include live songs that were never featured on a studio album. They can feature songs from a soundtrack. It could be a bonus track from a deluxe edition of an album that didn't get released on the studio album as it originally appeared. It could be a guest appearance, a collaboration, etc. And then here are the maximums. You can have no more than 3 covers. You can have no more than 12 studio album songs from any decade. You can have no more than 3 songs from any studio album, from any single studio album. And you can only select, so I apologize to you guys because I mistyped this when I wrote this out. So you can have one album with as many as 3 songs on it, but no more than 3. And then you can only have as many as 2 from any additional albums. So I hope we're good on that, because I didn't type that out right.
We'll make it work. Yeah.
We're all good? Okay.
Yep.
All right, so that's pretty much it. I think that covers everything.
Because we're gentlemen, we are going to allow Richard to go first.
Wow, thanks, guys.
Yeah, and just to explain the snake style draft that we use, Richard goes first, and I will go second because Rudy went second in the Springsteen draft, and Rudy will go third. Then we snake around. That means Rudy gets the 3rd and the 4th pick, and then I get the 5th, and then it's back to Richard at 6, and Richard gets 6 and 7.
Agreed.
All right, you're on the clock, my friend.
Okay, we're on the clock. Yeah, you said it. So with those rules in mind, and with the 25 albums and so much more to pick from, the range of music that David Bowie was involved in is just crazy. I'm gonna go straight for the good stuff, straight for the classic album, Aladdin Sane, and I would pick first Panic in Detroit.
Ooh, interesting. Okay, so just a note to all of us. When we kind of do our requirements, it will help if we call them out. I'm kind of doing the record keeping here, and so I appreciate any assists I can get. So that gives you 1 from the 70s, and that gives you one from Aladdin Sane, which is of course your first your first unique studio album. So that's where your requirements are at now. All right, so my number that puts me at my first pick at number 2 here, and I'm not going to pick a song that is necessarily one of my favorites or even one of my. It might not even be one of my top 10. I don't even know where it falls, but I'm worried about the requirement of the '60s more than really anything else. So in order to fulfill my obligation to have one track from the 1960s, I am going to pick Space Oddity, because the David Bowie '60s stuff is really like, I don't know. There's some interesting things, but not much that I can really say I love. So I want to pick Space Oddity to make sure I have that obligation fulfilled.
That's such a good pick, and just because it's a classic doesn't mean that it's not just. What I'm trying to say is just because it's heard a lot doesn't mean that it's not just impeccable and strange for the time and still strange today and just a classic. It's amazing.
Yeah, and so much of that '60s stuff is just kind of a hard fit, but this, like, gives me a song that I think works perfectly. But it's not that his '60s stuff is what I would say. I don't think it's bad or anything, but it's a hard fit is really the best way I have to describe it. Like, it's a little bit like I hate to compare it to Spinal Tap, but in Spinal Tap how you see the old clips and it's like, they're doing the Flower Children, and then you're like, well, how does that get to that? And then with Bowie you have the you have your Ziggy Stardust era stuff, but right before that you have him, da 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 dum, and and it just, I don't know. It's a tough fit for me.
Agreed.
This is the strategy's already starting here. I feel like I have to grab something from the '60s just because of the fact that the cup does not runneth over in the '60s for Mr. Jones. I'm not going to do it first, though. I'm going to go with a sentimental pick. I think it's also a fan favorite. It should be. It should be a favorite for everyone. I don't know if it was even a single, but I'm going to grab "Oh You Pretty Things" from Hunky Dory. I don't know if that makes it into everybody's Hall of Fame or Pantheon, but it does for me. It's one of my all-time favorites. Just for sentimental reasons, I got to grab it, which there's plenty left in the '70s. So I'm not worried about blowing any of your lists. I'm going to grab, with the fourth pick, I am going to go to the '60s just to play some defense. And I'm going to grab Wild-Eyed Boy from Free Cloud. Which I have to admit I wasn't a huge fan of, but it did come out on the Sound and Vision box set in 1989, and my roommate at the University of Iowa was insane for David Bowie, and really got me turned on to that one. So I'm going to grab that. That's going to be my '60s pick, Wild-Eyed Boy from Free Cloud.
Oh, good one. Good one.
Yeah. I mean, there are other things from the '60s that are pickable, and I wasn't trying to say otherwise, but it's really hard to top Space Oddity in the '60s. I think so.
True.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think the '70s are going to be the least bit difficult, but I think regardless of that, I'm still going to go with Heroes here. From Heroes, but I am going to take the single version because like for a long time the first David Bowie album I had was Changes, and it was hard when the first time I heard the album version of Heroes. It was kind of hard to accept the lyrics because they didn't seem quite finished because I was so used to the single version of it. So I'm going with the Changes version, but it counts toward the album Heroes. So that gives me my first one from the '70s.
That's yeah, good one.
Hard to argue.
Heroes, in quotations.
All right, so Richard is up for the next two.
Okay, for the next two. So, kind of steering it back to the 60s. Yeah, so one of the totally interesting things about David Bowie is that he had so many kind of false starts that I think you kind of alluded to with your pick, Sean, and was kind of contemporaries of bands like the Pretty Things and the Kinks in the 60s. So one of my favorite songs from kind of like mod era David Bowie is before he was David Bowie. So we've got for my pick, which actually would count towards the three rarities bucket, we've got You've Got a Habit of Leaving by Davy Jones and the Lower Third, which is one of the many singles that were put out under a whole bunch of different record labels starting in, I think, like 63, 64, where it seemed for like a second he got his foot in the door of the industry only to have his bands break up or the singles to not chart, or there's a lot of self-sabotage in there too. And so that's my pick for my first rarities. You've Got a Habit of Leaving.
Wow.
Okay, and I want to make sure that just in case you're not clear on it, like, since that's not from a studio album, it wouldn't count toward your 60s requirement. It just only counts for the rarities.
Got it. Yeah, noted.
Okay.
And then let's see, for my next pick, I gotta pick a good juxtaposition to that, which would be I think DJ from Lodger, which is I think those are maybe kind of bookends in a way, and Lodger being the third of the so-called Berlin trilogy, which encompasses Low, Heroes, and Lodger. Also a good fit with your pick, Sean.
Yeah, and I had DJ on my list.
Me too.
Yeah. So that's honestly like Oh You Pretty Things I might have picked, but I wasn't really. This is like the first one where I definitely had my sights on it. So yeah, good pick with DJ there.
Thank you.
All right. And by the way, I got to tell you, I have a killer spreadsheet that I put together for this thing, just so I could.
I bet you do, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not doubting.
Picasso didn't do spreadsheets, but if he did, he would be envious.
I don't know. Like, you're up, son.
It's a blue period spreadsheet.
Right.
Okay, so my next pick, I am going to go. I feel, honestly, I'm just going to explain it this way. I feel like if I don't get this one, Rudy will, and so I'm going.
I know what it is. I already know what it is because it's the one I'm going to pick next. That's how this goes. Say it.
Oh well, it might not be. It might not be. I definitely want. I bet it actually isn't the one that you're going to pick next. But now that you said that, I think I know which one you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So now I have to think about whether or not I want to pick that one instead.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It might be the one, but it probably isn't. All right, I'm gonna go with. Yeah, I'm gonna do it. Okay. I'm changing my pick to the other one.
Just living rent free. Go.
I'm gonna go with Modern Love because I don't feel that good about the 80s.
Oh, that's definitely on my list, but it wasn't it. Excellent.
Okay.
Oh, I love that song so much. Thank you.
We'll see then.
It definitely. Again, I like the 80s probably more than you two dudes do, but that's definitely on my list. That hurts. You're getting a pound of flesh.
Yeah, it's easy. It's easily the one that I want from Let's Dance. I don't really. There's really nothing else I want very much from Let's Dance. So
what? Are you kidding? All right, that's to each
It's
their own.
true.
There's some gold on Let's Dance, but I really do think of it as like a maxi single or an EP, with with Modern Love and Let's Dance, and then just like we just need some more songs and it'll fly, because
Yeah,
Oh my God, I can't believe I'm hearing this. But okay, sure.
yeah, that's true. That's pretty much it.
Stevie Ray
And
Vaughan, Nile Rodgers. Do these names mean
yeah,
anything? Iggy Pop? Does it mean anything?
they
yeah,
do, but
they do. Yeah,
yeah.
it's in spite of those things that it doesn't fly.
It's the hair color and his sartorial choices. You hated the yellow suit. Everybody else did. He looked like an Easter egg.
I like
He's
the
got to
yellow
carry
suit.
that forever.
And another thing I'll say about it, and this is like a general message to engineers who worked on records in the 1980s. It's okay for a drum to sound like a drum. Is it not okay?
Wait a minute.
It's okay.
You carry more water for Jeff Lynne's 90s production than anybody I know. You
His
can't
drums
make
sound like
a snare
drums.
drum. They sound like you're hitting a trash can with a mallet.
They sound like drums.
No.
I would also like to acknowledge, while we're on the topic of the yellow suit, what a cool Halloween costume that was for Scarlett Johansson in Marriage Story.
Hey, Scarlett Johansson's cover, Tom Waits covers album is pretty good.
It is.
It's pretty good. I'd take a mixed CD from her any old day. All right, we'll talk about it another time. Okay, so I get two now.
You get two now.
All right, I got to defend some 80s territory here. I'm going to grab Ashes to Ashes from Scary Monsters. I will admit freely that if I was going to pick an album from the 80s that I was going to max out on, it would be Scary Monsters.
Oh, yes, please.
Yeah, I understand the aversion to much of the 80s stuff after that, but you can't run on Scary Monsters.
Scary Monsters is exempt. It's not really... It's technically of the 80s, but it's not so much of the 80s. It's not a product of its time so much.
Yeah, it was ahead of its time. I think. I mean, he that was in the 80s. He did start. I can't remember what the song is where he basically disses his imitators a little bit, but I think a lot of the imitators were imitating Scary Monsters as much as the other stuff, and the Berlin records, which is where I'm going to go for my next pick. I've got to grab Sound and Vision from Low.
Oh, good one.
Yeah, I have to. Again, I still can't think of a record on earth that sounds like that. Nothing really sounds like that. Nothing from him, nothing from anyone else, and it felt like I think was it Robert Fripp that said that My Bloody Valentine's Loveless could have been a whole new direction for music. Actually, Brian Eno said that. Loveless should have spawned an entire new direction for music. I think the same could be said, maybe slightly dialed down a little bit about Sound and Vision from Low. And I think Low, I think you can't claim that the Berlin records are underrated because everybody says they like them, but I never meet people who are rocking them out, and I think they're missing it. I don't know. Sound and Vision's great. It should have been a huge hit. I don't know what to say. I like Low. I like all of them, but that's what I'm going to take.
All right. So is one of those songs the one that you thought I was going to pick?
Yeah, I thought for sure you were going to take Sound and Vision because I was listening to it all week. I realized that you can see what I'm streaming, and I thought you got to stop listening to that stuff because then it'll take it.
Honestly, no, because most of the time I'm using Spotify on my phone, so most of the time I'm not seeing what you're listening to. So I wasn't Santa Clausing you on that.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so actually, now I am going to pick the one that I thought you would snipe from me if I didn't pick it right away.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives me a chance to kind of fill out. I'm doing pretty good on getting different changes on my list. I got Space Odyssey. I got Berlin covered with Heroes. I got Modern Love, so I got the 80s started. And so now I'm going to go to the soul phase, and I'm going to go Young Americans here. So that's my second from the 70s. My first, it's the title track from the album Young Americans, my first from that.
Unimpeachable.
Love it.
Yeah, I thought that was the one that you might pick. It was either between Modern Love or Young Americans. I thought you would snipe one of those, so now I have them both.
You were warm. You were warm.
Yeah.
You were thinking right. I'm a little cagier than that though.
Maybe not. I got
I'm
them
a
both.
I'm a crafty veteran. I don't
All
throw
right.
heat.
Well, unless you're playing the long game here and you're going to actually take something that we'll just see, I guess. I'm
All
gonna
right.
stop talking.
No. Go ahead. Keep talking. Sorry. Richard, I think you're up.
I think I
Or
am.
wait,
Yeah.
are you? Yeah. I think it is Richard.
And I'm gonna go a decade that we haven't touched yet, and one that is kind of front of mind for me is I'm gonna go with "Girl Loves Me" from Black Star.
Mm.
And Rudy, I thought of you when I picked this one out because of Tune Yards living in your old house.
That's right.
And the album Black Star is so cool because it follows more or less right on the heels by like a year or two of The Next Day. The Next Day being like a really cool conventional rock and roll album, 2013, and then Black Star 2015, I believe, comes out and has a lot of really interesting experimental kind of jazzy things going on. And then Girl Loves Me has such an interesting approach to singing and vocals that I don't think you really hear anywhere else in David Bowie's long and beautiful career.
I have to hold my comments because I don't want to give away any strategery. But I admire your thinking.
Okay, so that would count towards my my aughts records.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're the first to go in, you're in the teens there. So,
Right.
so you're the first to go into the teens. You got your one of two required for that decade, and you have one more pick here.
Okay, well, then I'm gonna go back one decade to and these are two records that I kind of think of as being like in one batch, which would be Heathen and Reality. And I'm gonna go with Slow Burn from Heathen.
We've crossed the Rubicon here into the 21st century stuff. It really, from a strategic point of view, it changes things. Flick, what are you going to do with that information?
I'm just I'm still biding my time on that. I think I'm going to be fine. I'll go more in depth on that in a bit, but I do have that kind of planned out. My next pick, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm double dipping on the Thin White Duke here. So this is my first double dip, but I got to go with Golden Years here and make sure I have that one.
Nice one.
From station to station. So it's my my station to station contribution and my third from the 70s already.
All right, because I'm vulnerable in the 21st century stuff and I can see we're sort of heading that way, I got to go grab a few while I can. I'm going to do two. I'm going to grab "'Tis a Pity She Was a Whore" from Black Star. I maybe this is all in my mind, but I swear before that album came out, one of the teaser singles was a short, like, acoustic version of "'Tis a Pity She Was a Whore." I have never been able to find it since. It was up for like a week and it went away. I loved it. And then the album version that came out, I also love. So I'm grabbing that one. But I'd kill to find that original little teaser version. Maybe it was a demo. I don't know. And then I'm going to grab, this is a toughie. I'm going to go to the album Reality, and I'm going to grab the song Days, which I freely admit I was not a huge fan of the album Reality at the time.
It's a good album.
Yeah, I've gone back and I've realized the error of my ways.
Yeah.
And to be honest, the song Days made it onto my into my playlists, or I was aware of it because who's the guy from Springsteen's band? Steve Van Zandt has that radio show on. Little Steven. Yeah, Little Steven has a radio show on XM, and I think he used to play Days quite a bit. I know it's on a compilation he has. So I'm picking Days from Reality. That's 2003. So I got an aughts and I got a teens.
Yeah. Yeah. I did. Well, I'll totally admit that I didn't give Reality enough time at the start either. But once I did, I realized that he was onto something there. And again, it's hard to talk too much about it and not give away where you're going to go with a future pick. So I'm not going to say too much just yet on that. But it is a good album. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna stay right in the 70s because even though I think it's pretty easy territory, it's still, there are certain songs I want to make sure I have, and Man Who Sold the World is one, so I'm gonna go ahead and take it now from the album Man Who Sold the World. So this is already my fourth song from the 70s, fourth different album from the 70s, and sixth different album overall.
Good one. Yeah. Okay, am I up?
You are.
You're up too, yeah.
How do you follow that, right? Okay, I'm gonna zig where you zag, and I think I'm gonna. I might have to kind of round out our station to station pick, because I think just recently, I think that's the album that I've been going to the most. I remember having it on a loop for probably about a year, as being the Bowie song or the Bowie album that I go to. So I'm gonna go for TVC 15.
Ooh, that was on my list.
Good
It
one.
hurts, but I respect it.
That was my backup plan to Golden Years.
And wow, I just want to call out what a cool bass line that is, and what a cool structure or lack of structure that song is. And that I'm pretty sure TVC 15 directly influenced the live version of Love on the Beat by Serge Gainsbourg.
Interesting. Would have not have caught that. Do you?
All
is
right.
that-
Do I get another pick?
yeah, you did one. You did TVC 15, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got another.
My first rodeo, guys. So I'm gonna. Okay, so that was classic, and then I'm gonna do another kind of rarities thing, and I'm gonna go with from the 1985 soundtrack album.
Don't do this. Don't do it.
You don't. Okay.
I know what you're going to do. Do that.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
No,
maybe-
you can do it. You're supposed to do it.
Okay, well, I got to go with Absolute Beginners, the title track, which is just such a cool tune, and not, it's maybe kind of tossed off, like, we have a couple hours in the studio, but maybe that's what I like about it.
No, it's amazing. It's on my list. It was up there. I didn't think in a million years I'd have to defend that one. It's the last David Bowie record that I bought. Anyway,
Yeah,
cool.
it's great. It's great. I love it so much, and I think that one thing, kind of going back to Little Stevie, I think one thing that some pop star people have trouble with is like knowing how to properly integrate the saxophone, and this is such a cool example of someone doing it right.
Okay.
Flick, are you gonna rep for that one? Because it's great, right? You're gonna admit Absolute Beginners is great, especially the full 8-minute version.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I like it. Sure.
That is faint praise.
Yeah,
Unacceptable.
I don't love it the way I love some of his other stuff, but yeah, I like it. I'm not gonna diss it. I had thought that was actually that made an appearance on one of his studio albums at some point. It did not.
It would be an extra track, but it was on the soundtrack
Okay.
to either a film or a play.
Yeah, maybe
time.
that's why I was confused. Okay, so that's the second rarity.
Yeah, Richard, I'm actually it validates. I thought I was going to say that, and you guys are going to laugh. So to find out somebody else likes it,
Rudy,
makes me happy.
I'm never gonna laugh at you, buddy.
All right, thanks, my friend. Thank you. Is it you, Mr. Flick?
It is. Okay, so the question is, do I stay in the 70s now? Because I've kind of exhausted. I mean, not exhausted. There's plenty more to go,
But
but
we haven't picked anything from Ziggy Stardust yet, so I mean,
well, it's. I'm gonna go ahead and tip my hand there. That's easy. It's easy. It's easy picking.
yeah.
I mean, there's just no way to be disappointed by what you get. Um, you know, you know what though? I am going to stick with the 70s, and I am going to go for. I'm going to go for an album that is almost as easy as Ziggy Stardust, or arguably as easy, and that's Hunky Dory. I'm going to go with Life on Mars because I don't want anybody else to have it. So,
how can you not? Yeah, that's such a good song.
yeah, it's one of those where it's just like, yeah, I'd be happy with whatever comes next on Hunky Dory, but I won't be as happy as if I get Life on Mars, and I'll be disappointed if I walk away from the draft and don't have Life on Mars on my list. So, taking care of that.
All right. In the spirit of, I was terrified at your pick, Richard, because both of my 80s, or a couple of my 80s rarities were soundtrack moments, and you grabbed the Absolute Beginners, which was the top of my list, and I did buy at the time. The other one I just feel for defensive reasons I have to take at this point is This Is Not America, with, I don't know if you did it with just Pat Metheny or Pat Metheny Group. I'm not sure. But This Is Not America is it's not a lost Bowie tune. It was a huge radio song I remember at the time. But it's I've known some of the kids at work when I see them listening to Bowie and I look at their playlist, it's never on that, and I always am like, go look up this, go look up that. And they always come back and thank me for This Is Not America. So I'm taking that one as a rarity. And then I got to grab something from Young Americans, and I don't care how uncouth it makes me. My mom bought this record when it came out. We have the 7-inch single on RCA Records. I'm going to take Fame. I know John Lennon's on it. I can't distinguish his voice per se, but Fame is fantastic. It may have been overplayed in certain points in history, but just go back and listen to it. It's still hot. I mean, it's hot. So Young Americans I'm grabbing, and I think I can leave the 70s for a while with that.
You know, you mentioned Fame, and I just got like the Free Zone kind of thing on my arm because it's such a good song, man.
Yeah.
And, my understanding of this, and this may be apocryphal, is that he gave John Lennon a songwriting credit because he was in the studio when it was laid down, and he felt like he was kind of like channeling John Lennon's delivery.
Well, have you heard the James Brown, I think it's called Hot? Are you familiar with it?
No.
So as I understand the history of it, it's Carlos Alomar's riff. Does that sound right? Yeah. And Carlos Alomar had been in James Brown's band prior and had offered James Brown that riff. And James Brown sort of turned it down at the time, and then he gave it to David Bowie. It has this huge hit, and then basically James Brown went back and re-recorded a spot-on version of it. I'll put it in my playlist. I think it's just called Hot, or the word hot like 10 times in a row. But there is some James Brown beef around Fame, which is fun as well. But you can't beat it. You can't beat Fame. That was certainly going to be the funkiest record played on AM radio that year. You know what I mean? Like what was even close?
Yeah, and you know, I might have a slightly different version of it. I guess, you know, that John Lennon was definitely in the studio, and that's what led to the songwriting credit. But I had heard that it was his riff. But yeah, the Carlos Alomar thing might be more credible.
I'll dig it up. I'll put it on my playlist. But you guys, it would be a diss of all of us if Fame wasn't on one of our playlists when we had 75 songs to choose from. It had to go.
You gotta have something funky like that on there. But I have Golden Years, so I'm not sweating it. But yeah, no, I would have if I didn't end up with Young Americans, I would have been happy to have Fame.
I think you're up, son.
All right. Well, Yeah. Well, okay. So I think that I'm going to again stick in the 70s, just because there are so many great songs that are hard to ignore. I'm going to go ahead and from Diamond Dogs, I'm going to take Rebel Rebel, and it is my sixth 70s song and my ninth or eighth different studio album.
Oh, Rebel Rebel, thank you. Yeah, so good. I Rebel Rebel plays a large part in my own personal mythology as a rock and roll person and performer and recording artist. In that was the first time that I really got to feel the power of like playing with a really loud, good band. Was
Yeah.
an event in Portland at a bar called Dante's Inferno, uh, and the event was called Karaoke from Hell, and they had like the tightest band on stage, and the idea is that um, you get to pick from the 45 songs that they know and go up there and be the lead singer with like this loud, awesome band behind you. And I got to sing Rebel Rebel, and I was like, wow, I should be doing that more.
The riff too. I think David Bowie is underestimated at his ear for just massive riffs because he doesn't rely solely on the pop idiom, because he doesn't just, he could probably write perfect pop songs all day if he chose, but I think people, it just gets in the sheer variety of things he has done. I think people forget just how many absolutely massive riffs he has put underneath him. It's very hard to compare, especially for as long as he did it. Pretty
and
amazing.
and Mick Ronson's guitar tone on Rebel
Oh
Rebel.
yeah.
Yeah.
I understand that like really just right on the border of like being a growly tone was achieved by having the signal run through a volume pedal, and the volume pedal just like being halfway closed.
Yeah, yeah, the wah wah. Yeah, and by the way, it's funny that this is the first time that Mick Ronson's name was mentioned, because my thinking before we started was that you could have a drinking game attached to this, and at least for me personally, you could take a sip every time I mention Mick Ronson's name, because I figured I would have done it like a billion times already. Mick Ronson is, not only I think one of the most underrated guitarists of all time. I think he's David Bowie's, and this isn't to discount like somebody like Tony Visconti or there's a lot of people that helped make David Bowie who he was. To me, Mick Ronson takes a backseat to none of them, though. He meant so much, and the guitar alone uh, is a big part of why the stuff from the 70s is as big a deal to me as it is. But also, he was arranging the strings on Life on Mars, and you know that's on me for not mentioning that when I picked Life on Mars. But things like that, like he wasn't technically composing, but so maybe he didn't necessarily deserve a songwriting credit, but he was arranging the hell out of those songs.
I think that riff and that sound, that tone he gets is so singular. Like if you worked at a Guitar Center in any suburban strip mall, I think that riff would scare off the average person picking up a guitar just playing what they know. Because if you couldn't make it with that sound, you'd get laughed out. Like it's so tied to that tone. Although I did put a version, and Richard, I will defer to you on this one, but Flick is of the opinion that there aren't a ton of great David Bowie covers out there. I'm gonna say something in favor here. Ricky Lee Jones, who I think did Chucky's in Love or I can't remember what her big hit was, but she does a cover of it that's almost acoustic without the massive riff in it. There's a great, like, the songwriting is also just as good. The song stands up without the riff, but with the riff it becomes transcendent.
I'd like to hear more David Bowie covers, because in my explorations and in my doing my homework for the show, you come across a lot of great tunes, especially ones in the 90s that you're like, oh, I wish you could just like peel it back, and have someone like Ricky Lee Jones or uh, uh, Sam Phillips. I think would be the person who I would nominate to do like a bunch of David Bowie covers, because her playing is so spare and her voice is so like singular and cool like his.
That's the thing. There's a lot of great covers that are led with the female voice, and you can hear you hear things in that presentation that are genuinely they're uncovering nuance. I'm going to take this as a challenge. I'm going to put 10 tight Bowie covers together for a playlist and see if I can't win you two over with it. We'll see.
Yes, please.
We'll see. All right, is it up? I think it's you, Mr. Richard. I think you get two.
Yep, you're up for two.
Oh wow, gosh. So I just did Absolute Beginners. You did Rebel Rebel. I'm gonna come back with my third and final rarities pick, and I'm gonna do a guest star track, which is his contribution to the song "Reflector" by Arcade Fire, which is I think one of their best singles. And when he swoops in, he's only on it for, I say, like a middle third and maybe a chorus, but definitely a less is more appearance, and a totally cool tune that is kind of in the LCD sound system kind of vein of aughts and teens danceable indie music, and also has a killer sax riff. So really checks a lot of the requirements that I feel like hearing when I listen to David Bowie.
That is a bold choice, and that is fantastic. You're exactly right. And I'm glad someone else around here likes saxophones. I'm not saying you don't, Flick, but it's I mean, if you go out and stand on the street with a microphone and say, name the last great song with a saxophone part in it, I'm going to guess most people would stare at you funny.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, as an E Street Band fan, I think it's a given that I'm okay with the saxophone.
As we all should be.
Okay. Well, yeah. And maybe that's a whole other show.
It is. We should do a saxophone show.
And I'm gonna close out my my '60s tunes with a really weird tune called "Please, Mr. Gravedigger" from the self-titled David Bowie record, which I think also gets called Man of Songs, Man of Music. It got reissued a couple different times, but anyway, that is my tune. It's not fun necessarily. It doesn't have a lot of sax. It has no saxophone. Pretty sure it's almost a cappella, which I know a lot of people get the shudder when they hear that, because it's almost always a bad idea. And but I like it, and it ties back to his influence in British music hall, which is kind of like the tradition, like English version of like Broadway tunes. They're theatrical, they're sometimes like kind of bawdy, and sometimes pretty dark. And this one's pretty dark, so I like it a lot. And if you haven't heard it, it's surprise your friends and family.
Nice.
Yeah, and the '60s thing, again, that's a minimum. So if you want to go back and double dip and take like the Angry Gnome or whatever, that's still on. That's
what they expect you to do, Sean.
Yeah. So will somebody take the Angry Gnome by the end? We'll see.
Please somebody take the Angry Gnome.
All right. Okay. So, I'm going to go for hard real estate again, difficult real estate. An album no, you know what? I'm gonna go back on that maybe. You know what? I'm going to go for my first rarity. And I'm surprised this hasn't been taken already. But I'm going to take Under Pressure. David Bowie and Queen. I just assumed that this was going to be off the table before I had a chance at it, but it's still here. So I'm going to go ahead and take it.
It's on my list, but yeah, it's a great tune, and yeah, just listened to it all the way through for the first time in a while, and yeah, how can you argue with that?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I didn't figure it would still be out there at this point, but since it is, why not?
Yeah, I was probably going to take it on my next. And I got to scramble a little bit here. All right. Well, it's probably a little lazy to break the seal on the Ziggy Stardust, and I think it would be disgraceful if I did break the seal and didn't take the title track. Right? Like that just seems. You're right. There's so much else on there. I guess you could go Suffragette City, pretty easy. Starman, pretty easy. You know what? I'm just gonna, as an insurance policy, I'm gonna take the song Ziggy Stardust. Um, someday, Richard, are you familiar with the Bauhaus version of Ziggy Stardust?
No, I'd love to hear it though.
All right. Well, I might be overstating the case, but uh, what was the Hunger? I think is the movie that Bowie was in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He
he has his 10 minutes in the beginning of the film. Yeah.
I think he recruited Bauhaus to play Ziggy Stardust for that film. The video footage of Bauhaus playing it, I believe the Bowie is in. So while Mr. Flick is not overwhelmed by the cover, I understand. I do believe it is David Bowie approved.
Yeah,
And
I
yeah,
have to chuckle though, just because there's always a frame of reference. You know, like somebody's cover version of it is how you frame how you feel about the original. There's always that filter.
Yeah, but remember, I was when the original Ziggy Stardust came out. I think I was like 5 years old. Like there was no way for that to be mine. Like it was classic rock, but the Bauhaus version I think came out in like 80, 81, 82, and it was more contemporaneous to my music listening. And yeah, I've probably listened to the Bauhaus version more, but I'm not ashamed of this. I am not ashamed of this. It's fantastic, but it's obviously not going to be as good as the original. Nothing is. And then I'm just gonna close out. I think my '80s productivity here, and I'm gonna grab Let's Dance. And it wouldn't be an episode of this program if I didn't find a way to mention Frank Zappa. But Zappa specifically made fun of Let's Dance, and it's one of the few areas of disagreement that I have with Mr. Zappa's. He really hated that song, and I can't remember the name of the Zappa song where he just repeats the line "dance the blues to the point of absurdity," and it does grate a little bit, but I don't care. That the song is fantastic. The beat's fantastic, the production's fantastic, the playing is fantastic, and just because the clothes weren't, I think people are holding the clothes against
And
him.
the drums and the drum sound
Oh,
and the drum sound.
bite your tongue.
you know, my only problem with that song is I'm kind of the opposite of a fan of Stevie Ray Vaughan. And and doing my homework, I listened back to this track, and yeah, he doesn't. It's too good of a track for him to like really ruin in my mind. But yeah, him and I, Stevie Ray Vaughan, rest in peace. We never disagreed about the less is more doctrine.
So I do think his playing. There's other playing from him on the record that I do think is better. I do love the solo in China Girl. I love I don't know. I probably should have picked China Girl, but I didn't.
And it's a transition from where he's using Adrian Bello a lot in previous records, including like, oh wow, all the cool guitars on, not all of them, but like a significant amount of the cool guitars on Scary Monsters especially are Adrian Bello, and that transition from a super experimental player to a Texas blues player is a little bit hard for some fans, such as me.
To me, I've never heard a record that had Nile Rodgers' signature on it that wasn't fantastic. So I do think the production is great. And while we're, I know Let's Dance is always, and especially Modern Love are always thrown out there as a sort of a low point of David Bowie selling out. But
no, I mean he was. I don't know. You know why? I don't see it as a sellout, but I do think that album is very much a product of the 80s, and in that like most of the 80s product, it seems like um, it has enough singles to sell, but it isn't a full album. It just there's a lot of filler
There
and
is
not enough
some,
killer.
but for all the sort of the people who I would say are just sort of casual Bowie fans and just want hit records, when they ordered Let's Dance from the Columbia Record and Tape Club, and it showed up at their house and they put it on, they did not get the version of Let's Dance that's on the video, which is probably or on the radio, which is the one everybody wanted. The album version of Let's Dance starts with like a pinched, like abstract out sax solo. I would say percussively, it's on the more exotic side for him. Like the actual album version of it is not as painted as cleanly in the lines as the memory of it is, and that's because they never really played the full album version of it on the radio. They just played that single, which is a great. Whoever did that edit is a master. Like it's a great pop record carved out of a really interesting song, and a song that doesn't sound like his other stuff. I do think the diss on the album Let's Dance is that he wasn't being adventurous and wasn't trying. I think the full version of Let's Dance counterfeits that argument. I think that's a strange record. It's a stranger record as it was on the radio during that era, other than maybe like, I don't know, Pac-Man Fever or whatever happened to be on, at the time. It go back and listen to the full album version of it and tell me that like they were sitting there in the studio going, that's a hit. I just don't believe it.
Rudy,
I don't
I'm sold.
believe it.
You got
All
me.
right, yay.
Under the moonlight, the serious moonlight, as opposed to the jokey moonlight.
Really, if I give you a time machine flick and you can go back and you can pick whatever 5 Bowie tours, that one doesn't make your short list. You don't want to see that for real?
See the
You
tour?
don't want to know what that was like? The Serious Moonlight tour.
Well, if you're going to give me the chance to see any of the tours, I'm obviously going to want to see the Ziggy tour most.
Okay, agreed. Agreed. But are you saying in his top 5, if you can go back and see any 5 historical era Bowie shows, that one doesn't get consideration? You don't want to know what that was like?
That's when he was a stadium act. I'm never going to be that eager to go see somebody in a stadium. Just not the best way to see a show, period.
There's a little snobbery here. That's all I'm going to say.
I will say this, though. I do want to defend Stevie Ray Vaughan a bit. I do like Stevie Ray Vaughan. It wasn't the best fit. And, I guess, I'm not going to say I like him anywhere near as much as I like Mick Ronson. Go ahead and take a sip. Yeah. Anyway, that's a lot. That's an awful lot about Let's Dance. An awful lot.
Then I win. Hooray! We can stop now.
Okay. All right. Well, since you broke the seal on Ziggy,
Yep.
and thankfully you didn't take the song that I wanted the most. I'm going to go ahead and take Starman because I was worried that you were going to take it.
That's what I was going to pick, but I don't think I could live with myself. Like the first pick from Ziggy Stardust isn't the title track. It just felt wrong. But you're right. Starman's excellent.
Yeah, Starman. And not the most complicated thing that I think Mick Ronson ever did, but one of my favorites. One of my favorite tracks by, featuring his work. Yeah. So, Ziggy is not something they're literally every track. I could be happy taking any single track off of this, and that's all I'm going to say for now. But I'm glad I got Starman.
A good pick.
Thank you.
Okay, am I up?
Yep.
You're up. Yep.
I'm so bad at this, guys.
10 and 11
talking,
here.
It's not a skill.
Ziggy, it's this is tough because it's such a good closing tune. I got to go with Rock and Roll Suicide.
Yeah.
And going back to the genius of Mick Ronson as a player and also an arranger, You know, that tune at the end, the bum 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 bum
Yeah.
bum, that is written by Mick Ronson. He doesn't get a credit for it. And then when that is later referenced on Your Arsenal by Morrissey, uh, and I'm blanking on what tune that's on. Rudy, help me out.
Yeah, it's not. I'm the
Oh,
only thing I could come up with
Tomorrow.
is the cover he did that Bowie did from that album.
No, so yeah, it gets referenced on this Morrissey track on Your Arsenal.
Yep.
I believe the track is Tomorrow. And the guys in Morrissey's band, probably not Morrissey himself because he probably doesn't care. They're like, "Are we allowed to do that?" And Mick Ronson says, "Yes, I wrote that, so we can use it if we want to." Mick Ronson had producing that record, obviously.
Yeah.
So it's 2 minutes 58, but it feels like such an epic tune. If I didn't have the LP right in front of me, just based on like how elegant and big that tune is, I'd say it's like an 8-minute long song because it's just so cool and such a beautiful closer to such a big record. I think that
Yeah.
you know, you can probably argue something else. It's like such a great cap to such a classic album, but that's the one for me.
Yeah, and yeah, I think that's one of the all-time closers. Yeah, Ziggy's such a great album that, of course, it has. It has. Again, it's hard to say too much, but I think one of the best opening tracks you could have, one of the best closing tracks you have. Everything in the middle is great. As good as Hunky Dory is, and I think it is also a masterpiece. It's just really hard to top Ziggy. By the way, though, Mick Ronson also not given a songwriting credit by Morrissey on Your Arsenal either. So,
ouch.
Well, Bowie didn't hold it against him. I think Morrissey just put out a version of those two, a duet of them doing "Cosmic Dancer" from T-Rex that just came out like in the last. Again, I was a much bigger Morrissey fan before I started reading articles about his politics, but in his prime, Morrissey did do a version of "Cosmic Dancer." It was like a live version. It was pretty good, but there's a duet of him and Bowie doing it. You should dig that up. It's pretty good. Bowie didn't hold any of that stuff against him. I'll put it that way.
And that's the other show that we have to do, which is all covers of Cosmic Dancer, which
it'll be a 3-parter.
Here's the Nick Cave version from Live at Alexandria Palace, and
but with the David Bowie covers, I like Rudy said, I have a hard time saying any of them are truly great. I think there are quite a few of them that are good, but not great. With T-Rex covers, it's even more difficult to find anything that's worthwhile.
Oh wow! Did you not check out Angel-Headed Hipster, the new compilation that just came out?
To be fair, I haven't. I've heard the Nick Cave track came out first, and no, I haven't. To be fair, I haven't listened to that one yet, so maybe that's an exception. But
wait, you're the Ty Segall fan, and you're saying there aren't any good T-Rex covers?
Right? Yeah. No, I'm not including Ty Segall in that because his covers are great. But other than the Ty Segall ones, it's really tough to find something good.
That's TBD. There's going to have to be a T-Rex
ones
draft.
Are absolutely stellar. The Ty Segall ones are absolutely stellar.
We agree.
Am I still up, or is it back?
Yeah, yeah, you're up for pick 11 right now.
Let's go to guys. Let's go to the 90s. So going back to our discussion about I really want to just peel back the layers on some of these tunes. I'm gonna maybe I will. No, maybe I won't.
Yeah, that's kind of where you get when you go into the 90s.
We're not even halfway there. Keep going.
I'm gonna go to the last album that Brian Eno was producer of, which is called Outside.
Okay.
And there's kind of a weird little tune called Through These Architects' Eyes. And the album itself for me is like really impenetrable. I never really figured it out.
Yeah.
And it has the single Hello Space Boy, which I'm not a huge fan of, but um, it's big. It's like almost 20 tracks. It's long. It's, an hour and 14 minutes, according to Spotify, and really hard to figure out. So I really had to kind of dig through, and I found a couple of cool tunes on it. And one of my source books for this David Bowie journey that we're on is David Bowie, A Life, which is a compilation of interviews by Dylan Jones. And you'll find a lot of like really thoughtful defenses of the album outside. And I'm not sure that I can always agree with, the opinions of like Earl Slick and that kind of thing, or Brian Eno or David Bowie himself regarding this album, but they put a lot of work into it. And it's a weird journey. And they tried really hard, and I feel like there are a couple cool tunes that popped out of it.
Yeah, I agree totally on that album on Outside. Since the seal is broken there and broken on the 90s, I'm gonna follow suit on Outside because Through These Architects' Eyes was also on my list, so that took a chunk out of my real estate there that I was trying to protect. So I'm going to go with Strangers When We Meet because that was the only other song that I was really after on that album. And the 90s are kind of difficult. So I'm going to make sure that I have that represented here.
Okay. Well, I if I have to go to bat for Outside, I'd say We Prick You is kind of a cool tune. So
Good, I'm gonna need it.
Next time you're looking for your David Bowie 90s fix. Find it.
And by the way, Rudy,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Last time you said you had fulfilled your 80s obligation. You do need 3 from the 80s.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't think any of you are going to take Blue Jean, so I'll be all right. I'll take it later. I'm gonna have to go 90s now. And the only thing I had to go back and listen. There were a couple pleasant surprises, stuff which I just have to admit I wasn't paying attention. I'll be honest. I thought the Tin Machine record, the first one, was almost unlistenable. Not totally. It has its moments. The second one's pretty close to unlistenable as well. That kind of ended it for me with Bowie for a while. But I'm surprised. I liked the title track from Buddha of Suburbia. I don't know if that's maybe I'm the only one. That's 1993, so I'm going to grab that one. And then I have to grab it just because I need to lay on another big tune. And even though it's not necessarily big from him, I'm going to take All the Young Dudes as a rarity.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay.
All the Young Dudes as a rarity. That's such a cool song. Yeah. And I think last time we were hanging out, we were talking about Beside Bowie, the Mick Ronson documentary, and there are tons of great Mott the Hoople interviews in that, and they talk about how Mott the Hoople was going to break up because they couldn't write their next single. And someone mentioned that to David Bowie, and he's like, "Oh, here, have this one."
to have that laying around and be able to give that away just tells you, like, he couldn't lose.
Yeah, and the only time I can think of anyone doing anything like that would be like when the Boss was recording "Strangers" or "Darkness on the Edge of Town," and had 50 songs, and he gave away like all of them. And
like Because the Night.
Yeah.
Yeah, with All the Young Dudes, it's just like, well, here I've kind of written the anthem for this whole movement that I'm a big part of, but you go ahead and record it.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the story of All the Young Dudes.
But let's be honest, it wasn't wasted. It wasn't wasted. Mott the Hoople did right.
Yeah, and that's the first time in the draft I feel really stung by someone else's pick, I have to say, because I thought I could get that one. I
Cheap?
thought wrong.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess because at this point you kind of got it cheap. Yeah, I mean it just I never really I thought Rudy that was a song that you never really thought that much of, so I wasn't worried about you taking it.
Yeah, but I mean, Under Pressure was a good. I think Under Pressure and losing Under Pressure and Absolute Beginners, it sort of put me in a corner where of all the rarities that really are just alphas in my ears, that was one of the very few left. The other ones are sort of curios or interesting, or I'd have to make a case for. Of all the rarities, you do not have to make a case for. All the Young Dudes is either it's on the Mount Rushmore of Bowie rarities. You don't have to make a case for.
Certainly. It's a good thing I have more rarities in my chamber here. Okay, this is going to look like retribution here, but it's not.
If you say Blue Jean, I'm not going to be hurt.
Okay, well, I am going to take Blue Jean, and it isn't just because you mentioned it. It is because I feel like I'm going to need it. I was I did have a plan B, but I do like Blue Jean, so I had a plan B from this album, but Tonight is not a good album. It's a really bad album, but I do like Blue Jean, so I do want to get that because it's not going to be easy to get that third '80s song. I know I'm not worried about Scary Monsters, but I am worried about having to take something from either Tonight or
Black Pie, White Noise.
Actually, looking back on it, maybe I didn't need it as much. I'm still taking it, but I didn't need it as much as I thought I was going to need it.
I think that Flick, I was thinking a lot about us hanging out in college and how the David Bowie records that were like everyone had were Let's Dance, Tonight, and Never Let Me Down because they were so easy to find.
Yeah,
it's like everywhere.
Never
like
Let Me
in the
Down.
$2 bin, yeah.
Never Let Me Down is just like a joke that writes itself as far as the quality of that album goes.
I know. Yeah, and yeah. Please continue. I just had to.
Have you ever watched the full 20-minute version of the video? It's not good. It's not good. It's just not good.
I had no idea there was.
Maybe you should keep it that way. But the version of the video everybody knows. If you watch it, there's a couple moments where it's weird because David Bowie's in there playing multiple characters. The first 17 minutes of the video is the setup for the video that everybody knows. So if you can find the full 20-minute full-length video of Blue Jean, I can't in good conscience recommend you watch it, but I do feel for historical purposes, just think of yourself as a musical anthropologist and try to sit through it once.
I love it. I think that would be a good film festival pairing with the 17-minute Francis Ford Coppola film for Captain Io.
That would be, we'd have to have another a Dante's Inferno night for videos, and I think we've got our first night programmed.
Okay.
All righty. I cede to you, Mr. Flick. I have done enough.
Okay. Well, okay. So Richard now has pick 12. I think we'll make that the last pick of round one here.
Okay. Lots of pressure, guys.
You're under pressure.
Under pressure. Coming down on me. Let's see what we got. I think we just
we have another 14 to go. Right?
Right.
We're gonna do 2 installments, I believe, right?
Yeah, we're gonna take a break here, I think, and then we'll crank up on episode 68 because this is where we're really going to separate the amateurs from the pros. Is because we're 36 songs in, and I think we're all feeling pretty good. There's some preemptive picks, but this is where the gnashing of teeth and wailing of souls is really going to start. So I'm very excited.
Okay, well, I'm gonna go for my first 80s pick, guys, and I'm gonna go back to the totally classic. Awesome record, Scary Monsters and Super Creeps.
Yes.
And I'm going to pick Because You're Young.
Interesting. I can't. There's no arguing with anything on that record, in my opinion. It is certainly the stellar light of that decade for him. We agree on that, right?
Oh yeah, and I mean, if you had to pick
Yeah.
out top, I'd say like top 5. Just in terms of cover art and art direction, you really need to own Scary Monsters and Super Creeps on LP, because a little tiny CD jacket doesn't do it any justice. It's totally cool record cover.
Yeah, and also it has sides. Like side A and side B are different experiences on that record.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Well, yeah, that's kind of a trademark, because all of those Berlin albums definitely have distinctive side A's and side B's to them as well.
Yeah.
And let's see, I think I get another pick, right?
You do, but we're going to start your next one at the beginning of round 2.
Okay, well, listeners out there, stay tuned.
Yeah. So, Flick, you get one more, I get one more, and then we're breaking.
No.
That's it?
So we'll start with Richard's 13 on the next round, and then go from there.
Lucky. All right, that was a lot of that's an honest gentleman's day's work. I think we should all be proud. I think we did right. I think anybody from the outside world, we put our 3 playlists together. They can't all be. It can't all be filet mignon on day 1, but pretty close.
Yeah, totally. And just a little bit of housekeeping. Rudy, are you on? You already picked 12?
I remember I picked 2 every time. So
yeah, we all have 12, and yeah, the only thing my list is missing at this point is all the young dudes that could use a little bit of some.
Hey, look, it got picked on day 1. Imagine the shame we would all feel if that hadn't been picked on day 1.
Yeah, that's true.
Classic.
All right, and I don't think any of us have used the cover yet, right?
No, but those are coming. They're definitely coming.
Yeah,
You're back heavy on that. Good times. All right, gentlemen. All right. I look forward to it. Again, we should all, we're ending this episode as friends. Let's hope we end the next one that way.
Okay, guys. Until
then.
Happy 2021.
Excellent.
Happy
See you episode 68. Yeah, well, episode 68 is coming up next.
On the horizon.